Frustrating. Chelsea get Oliver Glasner by Crystal Palace in a game that was 0-0 at home at Stamford Bridge. The feeling's good. Chelsea are world champions. There's some new sexy signings. And, the mood is up. And this was always going to be a hard game. Mark Guehi, is his head turned? Is he going to go elsewhere? He looks injured last game in the Community Shield. Eze, we were briefed, wasn't even going to start. Somewhere else. He was doing the Wilf Zaha, unavailable until you play Chelsea. Probably his last game for Palace. He suddenly spawned out of nowhere. And Chelsea played the full-strength Palace team that Liverpool couldn't get past in a final, that Man City couldn't get past in a final, and it was always going to be very tough, and it was. They let Chelsea have the ball, and we're going to have to talk about low blocks, because it's all very well expressing your talent, your game plan, and your managerial tactics when space is afforded to you, even in the highest version of your opponent like Paris Saint-Germain. But in the Prem, you're going to come up against this. Guys, welcome back to Football Therapy with me, your host, Jan. This is your match review. We're going to talk about it. Daily content here, of course. You're all welcome. So if you want to support me, like and subscribe. Let's get into it. First of all, not the end of the world. My expectations for this season are points related rather than winning the Premier League, and I knew this was going to be tough. Any win would have been massive here. We didn't win, we didn't lose. First of all, I do want to start by bigging up Crystal Palace a little bit, because they are really good. I mean, they are probably about to lose Eze, but look, let's look at SofaScore here. They are a really good team. Their goalkeeper's good, Dean Henderson. He seems to have found the home landing spot. He's having massive finals and FA Cup finals against Man City, being penalty shootout hero against Liverpool. He's a good goalkeeper. Their defense is incredible. Guehi will leave. He might stay for the season because it will help his England chances, I read somewhere. But, Lacroix settled, Richards and Guehi, they're an amazing back three. And then the wing backs, people think of Munoz scoring loads of goals, getting loads of assists, Mitchell just flying up and down, but they defend as a back five incredibly. Wharton, of course, is probably the player England is missing in terms of that register in the midfield. Hughes, whether it's Hughes or, what's his name? I forget his name. He's not here. But, yes, and of course you got the front three of Sarr, Eze and Mateta that have really blended well in these last 12 months. Chelsea went nearly an entire calendar year of scoring every single game at home, and Oliver Glasner prevented that from happening. They closed the spaces massively, and it's tough. We're gonna have to learn to break down a deep block. I don't have any issues with what Maresca did generally here, the starting lineup and indeed the chosen subs. Yeah, so it didn't work in the end, the starting lineup, but in theory, I'm sure we had to play that back line. Of course, Tosin was unavailable. Sanchez, you play your vice captain for Enzo Fernandez. Of course, you play Caicedo. Of course, you play Palmer. So, who do you play in the front three positions? Well, you play Pedro Neto because he was our form player in the Club World Cup and he's our best starting senior right winger who can move over on the left. And then you play your only conventional left winger in Jamie Gittins at the moment. Both these guys are 1v1 explorers, they're dribblers, they take on their man, and you need that when you're facing a low block. I mean, he went very early with bringing in Estevao, and I think the only reason he didn't play him is because he's an 18-year-old, he doesn't speak English, and, he was by far the earliest sub in the second half. And, of course, in terms of striker, you play João Pedro. João Pedro is a false nine. He can play in tight spaces, he can combine, and this is, in theory, the right selection for breaking down a low block. I get it. No qualms, but Palace played so ruddy well in nullifying Pedro and Palmer, these guys. The two narrow front man, of course, as you can see, their touch maps are all over the gaff because they're the type of players they are. But they were completely nullified, and Glasner saw them like they're the danger men, and they couldn't get into the game. It was really, really good tactical and defensive performance from Palace, but it's up to us to find an answer, of course. If you look here on the left-hand side, the attacking momentum meter, it's all dominant Chelsea. Don't mean ruddy so-and-so. They've given player of the match to Reece James, who got a booking, and I thought needed to come off earlier, but settled down. And of course, we saw substitute appearances on the Chelsea side of things. 4 players. I think most Chelsea fans would agree with all of them, because we didn't need to bring on defenders. So Fofana, who are waiting to return from injury, Jarell Hato, Asugo, maybe there was a case for George, but he's not looked in form. Of course, he might go in the transfer window. So in terms of available players, Maresca made the correct decisions in bringing on Santos, Gusto, Delap, and Estevao. Delap, I know he's only got 6.3 rating here from SofaScore, but actually in practice, it looks like he was the best choice. Now, it doesn't make sense because Delap's the better player running into space, and in theory, Joao Pedro's the better player playing against low blocks. So the selection, in theory, tactically was correct, but in practice, it looks better when we had Delap in there running around. Now, you could say a couple of reasons. One maybe reason would be that Oli Glasner knew we were going to play Palmer behind Joao Pedro, analysed us accordingly as a good manager, and nullified them. So when Delap comes on, they're like, well, we're not going to give them space for Delap to run into. Don't worry about it so much. But in the end, it looked like he sort of affected the game a little bit more. In terms of the attackers, look, the ratings here on SofaScore, these two, Delap and Estevao got 6.9. Slightly better than Gittins. We just came up against a real tough, tactical setup, and the stats, I imagine, will tell us all. Over 70% possession. Now, we did get 1.8 XG, which actually isn't the worst in the world. I want Chelsea to get around 2 or above every game. So to watch that game with my eyes and see that we somehow generated 1.8, that's probably good for a good team with good finishes. That's probably good for 2 goals. It should be, yeah. And we ran a lot. They ran a little bit more, but both teams ran a lot. So the fact how we still generated that XG, but there's only one big chance. 19 shots, 4 goalkeeper saves. Shots on target, 3. And 2 of those came right at the very end. Right at the very end. See, they had 4 shots on target, probably one mainly on the break and stuff. It was in the 70s, mid 70s or something, when the Sky Sports coverage were like, Chelsea's only shot on target came in the 3rd minute. It was tough. All right, so in terms of the timeline, let's talk about the goal that was cancelled. We conceded a free kick. By the way, the goalkeeper was... my brain's melted. The goalkeeper wasn't awful. The referee was awful. He was pony. He was bad. Not because VAR rightly cancelled their goal, but he was bad. Mateta had a clear as day second yellow. He was stamped on Caicedo. Literally, it's a yellow card. It's not a red card, but it's a yellow card every single day of the week. He should have been off. I'm sure he probably gave them some bad calls against Palace, against Chelsea as well. He was just a bad ref on the day. What's his name? Darren... I can't find it. Is it Darren England? Is that his name? Nobed is his name. We've renamed him. So yeah, Eze scores a free kick in the 14th minute. Mark Gurhey in the wall pushes Caicedo over. Everyone thought the goal was cancelled because of the push, but actually it was to do with a positional, encroachment in the Chelsea wall by a metre. It's a rule. It exists. Pugma will take out with them Palace fans. It's just a rule. It wasn't a subjective, he pushed him, so it was rightly cancelled by all accounts. Argue with whoever, do you know what I mean? That's just the case with that. So there was bookings. I actually thought, so Munoz and Mateta get booked in the first half. So does Reece James. And in the first half, I think both our captains are playing really badly. I think Enzo Fernandez was really bad in that first half. I think he was in that right pocket a lot, making poor decisions, being too weak. He looked bad in pre-season. I think he probably had a good Club World Cup. He had an amazing season, generally Enzo Fernandez, but I don't think he looks sharp in pre-season. And maybe that's a hangover from just constantly playing football since Benfica, No, in Argentina, Benfica 6 months, Club World Cup, Chelsea 6 months straight away. He just never stops forever, flying all around the world, constantly playing. Maybe finally he needs to be rotated a bit. Of course, we've got Santos now. But I thought both captains, I thought Reece James was being torn apart by Eze, which is very unlike Reece James. Reece James can lock up the best around. He got a yellow card. He actually conceded a couple of fouls after getting the yellow. I'm not saying he should have got a second yellow, but the ref was like, come on, Reece, you're on thin ice here. I thought tactically change the game, make Cucurella tuck in to make the back free, bring on Malo Gusto for James, and get Gusto to hold the width and put in crosses forward to that. Like, keep your back free, your general shape, but the width is no longer held by, say, Pedro Neto. You do it with Gusto, and then the left winger holds the width, yada, yada, yada. You know, so I was similar shape, but different tactics, slightly different roles for different players. But to Reece's credit, he came out and he rode the game pretty well. And of course, he's a defender. We didn't concede any goals. But I did worry. I do think perhaps maybe Fernandes, he did get better in the second half, Fernandes, to his credit, but I do think maybe in the second half. Estevao very early, not even 10 minutes into the second half, Maresca, he makes the move. A lot of people speculated this would be the starting attack, that Neto would play our position on the left, and Estevao would play on the right because he plays so well with Palmer, and he is just a wild card. I mean, and he did, I know he made that challenge, got a yellow card, and he did sky a shot at one point, but these are just sort of moments of a young kid with rush of blood to his head in his Premier League debut. Generally, he changed the game in terms of, being that just spark of life. He will be very important for us, and I think probably he could be starting soon. But yeah, Maresca turning to an 18-year-old who doesn't speak English in 54 minutes. He just knows how good and how important Estevao could be for the Chelsea. Delap comes on for Pedro in 73 minutes. Joao Pedro, great player, probably lasted a little bit longer than we thought. Estevao, I like this foul. I know it was risky and a little bit more aggressive. It could have been a red. But I like it because it shows, I understand the Prem. You got to get back, you got to work, you got to tackle. Fine. And then, of course, he makes the other changes. And like I said, it's tough because I get all the change. I get the starting lineup. I kind of probably would have done the same. I get the changes. You can maybe I could speculate if different timings. I mean, he went very early with Estevao. And it was just tough. It's this. I'm not angry with the how they were deployed. I was going to say deplocation there. Gee, I don't even know if that's a word. How the players were deployed. This is definitely a coaching ground thing. Do you know what I mean? Like when this happens. But Ollie Glasner, he's a party pooper, isn't he? And rightly so. I'm not at all criticizing Palace. They did exactly what they needed to do, and they did it so well. So well. Average age of Chelsea, 23.9 to the 26.4 of Crystal Palace, interestingly. Right. Rob Sanchez in goal, totally fine. He did get overexcited in a couple of moments, but I think he deserves credit. Saves, fine, this, that, and the other. Well, to be honest, both defences were pretty good. I think Chelsea's defence could have been more important in progressing. Caicedo, I think, was very good. 7.7 rating, probably our best player on the day. He made, look at all these new metrics at SofaScore. This is terribly exciting for the new season. Ground duels, 7 out of 9. Aerial duels, 1 out of 1. He's different gravy granules, isn't he, mate? Pedro Neto, I actually felt really bad for Pedro Neto. I think he worked his buttocks off and he just basically didn't get a lot of the service. 15 sprints. Let's look at Gittins. I think Gittins did work hard too, but 13 sprints. He does work hard, Gittins. People need to remember that. They think he's just this like one-on-one merchant like Jadon Sancho, but he's not. He's works so hard. Yeah, and Cole Palmer. Cole Palmer still made 8 sprints, and you don't really need him to make sprints. You need him to get his head up, put his foot on the ball. He still ran a lot, over 10k. 0 out of 4 crosses, and I think a lot of that is just due to really good interceptive work from Palace. Not his best day, Cole Palmer. Like I said, the reason why we lost this game, I did criticise both the captains. I did think Fernandes could have been a lot better. But it's literally, it's these two. It's these two. And maybe they didn't play to the level. Maybe it was more likely it was because Crystal Palace nullified them. But that, for me, is why we didn't win the game. Tough, real tough. Not the end of the world. It is a hard, opening fixture. I think the frustrating thing as a Chelsea fan is before last season, 7 years in a row, we beat Crystal Palace at home. And then last season, they got a 1-1. They're different now. I mean, they've won the FA Cup and just beat Liverpool in the Community Shield. They're good. They are good. They're not going to finish in the top 6, but they can win the Conference League, qualify for Europa, defo, and they'll give a lot of teams a bloody nose. They're just very, very good, and they deserve respect. And we might need to sort of change our perception of what we expect when we play Palace now a little bit. Certainly why they are like they are. One Jose's gone, which he probably will go in the coming days. I think Mark he will go next summer, but, they're having a great time. Obviously, I would have loved a win. I would have predicted a win. It screwed my FPL. I lost some money having a flutter. All my fault, of course. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not miserable. It's the first game. I saw positives. We didn't lose. It was a low block. They've just had amazing results against Liverpool, City. It's not copium, it's reality. We'll learn a little bit more in the coming games, of course. I would have loved to have slapped them, but you don't slap this Palace, apparently. Let me know what you think, though. Please do comment. Please do like. Please do subscribe. And hopefully you'll be on for the ride for the season. And we'll get to that 200,000 subscribers mark. That would be nice. It's going to be okay. Peace.